Hello friends! Zombies, vampires, and post-apocalyptic YA have all taken over Hollywood at one point or another in the last decade and a half. So what's next? This week on Heat Vision Breakdown, we explore if so-called elevated horror, seen in films like Get Out and A Quiet Place, is the next thing on Hollywood studios' minds. 15 years ago this week, Danny Boyle's 28 Days Later hit US theaters and scared the crap out of a young Pat Shanley, seriously. The critically acclaimed film made zombies cool again for the first time in decades, largely in part by replacing the stumbling, drunk guy searching for a burrito stand living dead seen in films of yesteryear with the athletic, rage-fueled, infected neo-zombies on display in Boyle's film. 28 Days Later kicked off a trend that built upon the legacy of zombie godfather George A. Romero, and paved the way for the successes of Robert Kirkman's comic series The Walking Dead in 2003, and its subsequent domination on TV 7 years later. Not to mention movies like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake in 2004, Robert Rodriguez's Planet Terror in 2007, and even comedic fare like Zombieland and Shaun of the Dead. This new crop of films, capitalizing on the nation's newfound zombie fever, showcased the diversity of tones as our real-world concerns shifted. So hot was the zombie craze that even Brad Pitt got in on the action with the 2013 film version of Max Brooks' novel World War Z, which might just be the loosest adaptation of any book since Kubrick pissed off Stephen King with his version of The Shining.
Here's Johnny!
The popularity of specific genres come and go in circles. Just within the past 10 to 15 years, we saw the rise of paranormal romance, which sounds more like a Mad Lib than an actual film genre, popularized by Stephenie Meyer's Twilight and the subsequent sequels that elevated the art of filmmaking to levels hitherto undreamt of. They're so good. These led to a host of related book series and film adaptations that failed to capture the magic of K. Stu and R. Pat's world-shaking romance. Beautiful Creatures, The Mortal Instruments, Vampire Academy, these are all things that happened. They didn't really move the needle. Television shows of this ilk fared a bit better. True Blood and The Vampire Diaries are successful examples, but eventually interest waned, probably right around the time Sookie Stackhouse started shooting neon fairy grenades out of her palms.
How lame.
A similar, even more recent story could be told with teen post-apocalyptic novels and their adaptations. While The Hunger Games launched Jennifer Lawrence into superstardom, movie versions of the Divergent series, The Giver, and the Fifth Wave franchises fell hard. I guess after being forced to read 1984 and A Brave New World for Mrs. Krumsky's junior year English class, kids were a bit over dystopia. It's not just high-concept science fiction and genre films that can spark imitators trying to cash in on the latest fad, however. In the mid-2000s, dance flicks were everywhere. From 2004's You Got Served, to Step Up in 2006, which gave the world Channing Tatum, so, thanks, to Stomp the Yard in 2007. You had to think twice before bringing a rug into a theater in fear that it would be cut up. Elevated horror is just the latest buzzword to hit Hollywood. Films like It Follows, The Witch, Get Out, A Quiet Place, and Hereditary have been cited as signaling a change within the horror genre, somehow helping it transcend its supposedly base origins. I guess everyone just forgot about 1973's The Exorcist because horror has always held room for elevation. William Friedkin's masterpiece earned 10 Oscar nominations and was also the first horror film up for Best Picture. It lost to The Sting, which incidentally is one of my favorite movies of all time. While The Exorcist would certainly fall under today's distinction of elevated horror, even certain schlock and slasher films can be viewed from a heightened perspective. From the first movie to the latest, we can mark points of sophisticated horror with something to say. Be it Carrie's indictment of bullying and ostracization, The Thing's rumination on the effects of extreme isolation, or The Fly's chilling warning about not mixing Jeff Goldblum's DNA with that of a common housefly. Seriously, do not do that.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Taken in the modern context from the 2000s onward, elevated horror didn't begin with widely released features, but rather with indies like The Descent, Lake Mungo, Martyrs, Resolution, and Honeymoon. However, such films failed to resonate in such significant ways as Jordan Peele's Oscar-nominated thriller Get Out, or this year's critical darling, A Quiet Place. Now with A24's Hereditary making Oscar voters pee their pants right alongside the general movie-going populace, the genre of elevated horror has become official. And that means you can expect a lot more of it in the near future. There are hints of this trend continuing. Paramount is already plotting a sequel to A Quiet Place, while Hereditary director Ari Aster is working on another horror film, tentatively titled Midsummer for A24. Meanwhile, Blumhouse, the studio behind Get Out, and Damon Lindelof are teaming for the politically tinged The Hunt, which will take the conflict between right and left wings to a more extreme and violent level. The question of what makes certain types of films resonate with audiences at particular time periods is a philosophical conundrum that has baffled studio heads for decades. But it can be boiled down to one simple axiom. If a film resonates with audiences, you can be sure that Hollywood will try to recapture that magic for as long as they can. And that's why there are 8 Saw movies.
It's 300 years old.
What other trends are you seeing in film and TV? Let us know in the comments right down there. I heard that superheroes are really taking off.